Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's episode 179 of the Audible Farm podcast, and this episode is brought to you by Couchtown Coffee. Couchtown Coffee is roasted right here in Iowa. It's my favorite coffee. I drink it every single morning. That's true. The only mornings I don't drink it is when I run out and I have to drink something else, and I'm not as happy about having to drink something else as I am about drinking Couchtown. I ordered some recently, got a nice variety pack of different coffees in. I love them all. They're amazing. You should check it out. Go to couchtowncoffee.com. Find a coffee you like, make an order, and when you do, let them know that Audible Farm sent you, and they'll give you 20% off. Why? Because Couchtown Coffee is that awesome. Thanks, Couchtown. This episode, I'm sitting down with Vince Benyshek. He was on the podcast like 3 years ago was the first time he was on the podcast. That's a long time ago. Episode 24 was his first episode, and this is episode 179. Wow. That's pretty wild. He's come a long way in that short amount of time, too. When I first started talking to him, he played guitar, but he didn't really play shows or do anything. And then not too long afterwards, we went to a jam night, and he kind of found some buddies near his hometown that played music, and he started a band, and within 3 years, he's been playing shows, he's fronted a band, he's playing with other musicians. He's come a long ways, and it's really kind of cool. So we sit down and we catch up about that. We talk about just different things we feel and think about music, you know, the difference between playing off the cuff for most of a show or setting all the solos and everything out exactly where they're supposed to be, playing music like a job, but also kind of not, just, you know, going out there and having fun with it. And we talk about all sorts of stuff like that in this episode. It's a really good episode. I really enjoy sitting down talking with Vince every chance I get. And, you know, kind of sucks. The older we get, the less we get to talk. But you know what? That's still cool. I enjoy the guy. I've known him for quite a while now, and it's fun to watch him grow as a person and as a musician. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. It's 179 with Vince Benyshek of Vinny and the Night Prowlers.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
So today I am sitting down with Vince Benyshek. Vince, you've been on the podcast a few times before. I was actually thinking about that the other day, and then on my memories popped up like 3 years ago was the first time you were on the podcast.
Yeah, I saw that.
It was like just this last week. So, it's been 3 years, which is wild to think about, you know?
Heck yeah, man. Well, it's funny because I was listening to the last one you did with Clint. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, he's been on here like 7 times, you know, or whatever. And it's like, everybody likes listening to Clint, though, you know. And, well, heck yeah, man. I'll go see, you know, well, he mentioned some other stuff on that podcast, too, like about, don't, you know, expect your friends to show up. And I never do, you know, that. But, you know, I always go out and support, like, guys like you or Clint, just because you guys are freaking awesome for the music community and what you guys do. I mean, whether you be in the podcasting, you're always going to the jam nights. Yeah, he's putting that on, you know. Gotta love Clint for that. But I can't believe it, man. 3 years ago, shoot, I barely knew how to play, and here I am, I'm playing with a few different people now, and just doing the thing, man. Can't wait to finish up some recording stuff, which I thought was going to be finished like 5 months ago. But
welcome to how recording works.
Yeah. It's like, yeah.
Three Finger Betty's got a new album coming out maybe in 2022.
Yeah,
you know?
Right.
It's no fault of anyone's. It's just the way it works, you know. It's unfortunate. But, yeah, I mean, it is crazy to think about how far we've come. I mean, not just as musicians, but like as people and you know, yeah, that's nice. I should have unplugged the refrigerator. I think everyone can hear that. But anyways,
That's
so
all right.
I mean, it's pretty wild to think that, like, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, I'd say it's probably about 4 or so years ago, like you and I first met, like at, you know, I went back to school and you were going to school, and we were both kind of like older than other people.
Right.
I mean, you were only a couple years older than everyone else, but I was, you know, a little bit older than that. But like, you commented on a Maiden shirt I had on, and I was like, all right, this guy's cool.
Yeah.
So then we just kind of had like a budding friendship. We ended up going to that one jam night. It was in Bode.
Yeah.
And that was pretty fun. You know, that was the first time I got to play like with you. And it's just crazy because I really haven't gotten to play too many shows live with you, which is like
Right.
kind of wild too. Like when I think about it, I feel like we've played together more than we ever actually have because we don't usually do that too much.
Right. Well, and that and you know, that thing in Bode actually popped up on my memories too. So I shared it, you know, tagged everybody that I could that was there. And, you know, I was like, man, you know, like, you know, that was my first time ever doing something like that. And I was just, you know, I look back to that now. I'm like, wow, you know, Pete, I always tell people, I was telling people the other night at Byron's, that show you and Clint played, you know, I was like, well, you know, Pete's one of the only reasons that I'm playing, you know, because he took me out and did that, and I had so much fun. I was like, man, I want to do that again, you know, and I was scared to death, but
Yeah. I think it's weird, though. Like, I used to just be like, all right, I've got like 10 or so songs I know how to play and sing, and I enjoy singing and playing. And I would just go to jam nights, and if somebody didn't sing or play one of them, I would throw it out there, you know? And I had a few in my back pocket that, like, nobody ever... You know, like, it's weird to me that nobody plays Going Down at, like, any jam nights I've ever been to.
Dude.
It never happens. And it's like, this song is jam central.
Right.
Like, you could have 40 guitar solos in here. So, otherwise, I don't know. So that was, like, one we ended up playing together. But, like, I used to go to a lot of jam nights and sing and play. Now I don't do so much of it anymore. I don't know why. Like, some of it's probably just, like, being shy. I had, like, a really poor interaction with somebody at a jam night when I was singing and playing. Somebody in the crowd said some ludicrously unkind things,
yeah.
and that was like enough to just be like, all right, I guess I'm not going to sing and play much anymore.
I remember you told me about that,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, the real story is pretty wild, but generally speaking, that's what's happened, you know? So, yeah, that was enough to like kind of shock my system, but it's kind of cool to see that like you went from just like playing shows to just being like, now I'm going to sing and play, and you ended up playing like the Rockin' Picnic was kind of like your first big gig, like here in
Yeah.
Humboldt, and
That was the Night Prowlers like first gig.
Yep.
Like legit. We had played with you know, another band that Travis was in on their like breaks. Like they'd play a set and then we'd play like a half an hour set, and I just plugged my guitar into Merle's amp, and you know, and Bob would sit on Andy's kit. And that's how we kind of got started. Well, in that whole Rockin' Picnic thing, which would have been coming up on, it would have been like a year and a half ago now, but this year, Rockin' Picnic, it would have been 2 years ago. And Scott just kind of hit me up for that deal, and he's like, hey, we had a band back, our opening band backed out. Like, do you want to do an hour? And I'm like, let me ask the guys. I'm pretty sure, yeah. He goes, well, I saw this video of you, like, duck walking across the stage, you know, ripping out a guitar solo to Johnny Be Good or something, you know. He's like, that was awesome. I didn't even know you were doing something like this. And I've recently talked to him a little bit, too, because I've been playing with that Eli Alger, and it's a country band thing, and actually he posted something on the Iowa Lab Music thing, the group or whatever. We were actually playing a show in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh, cool.
And Scott like messaged me, or no, he commented on it, and he's like, hey, I didn't know you were doing this. And because he knows who this Eli Kid is, and he's seen him before, and I was like, yeah. So I messaged him. I was like, hey, what's up? Yeah, I've been playing with him for, you know, almost a year now. Kind of jammed. That started off as, you know, I've known him like my whole life, but he'd see my videos on my Snapchat. He's like, man, you're getting good at guitar. You know, you want to sit in with me sometime? I was like, we'll see. And he was playing in my hometown when I happened to be home one time, and I get like plastered. Okay, I'm hammered, and I walk into this bar, and he's playing. I totally forgot he was even playing that night. And I walk in, and he sees me like as soon as I walk in. I don't know how, because like, to explain this, you got to go through the bar, all the way around the bar, and then to basically a separate room, which has like these sliding doors basically. And he just happened to catch a glimpse of me right as I walked in. He says on his mic, oh, we got a special treat here, you know. Guys, you all know who Vinny Benyshek is. He's going to come up and play guitar with me. And I'm like, he like puts me on the spot there, and I'm smoked. And I'm just like, okay, fine. So I did, and got the guitar tuned up, and and he had another dude playing with him that was singing a couple songs, but I used his guitar, ended up playing lead, and it worked out. And he's like, well, why don't you play with me a little more? And we've been doing that, and been through a lot of people actually in that gig, but right now there's kind of got a set fiddle player, and this dude named Joshua, he's from Lincoln actually. He's freaking amazing. I mean, he's taught me a little bit, what certain scales to play on guitar and stuff to make it sound more country, because I'm not a country guitar player at all.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that.
But I've had a little bit of fun with that, and it's been a learning experience for sure. But it's hard to say, hey, I want to commit myself to something like this when I've got something so good and special, I guess, with my 3-piece, with the Night Prowlers, and because that's, I have so much fun with those guys, and that's another thing you said on the podcast with Clint. There's certain guys you play with, you play with them so much, or like you had been playing with Jesse so much that you just know it's your time to hit something, or it's like me, Bob, and Travis mesh so well that we know whenever something's going to happen, or Bob will roll into something and Travis will change his bass line underneath a solo and they'll start playing something else, and it's just as a 3-piece it's kind of dynamic, and we kind of just fly by the seat of our pants when we're doing it. It's like a little jam, but it's not, because we're playing legit songs, not just 1-4-5 stuff either, that you can get away with a lot of that in. But I guess at our last show that the Night Prowlers played was in Cedar Rapids at this little bar called Whiskey Joe's, and we ended up like having a real good crowd. I would say one of the better crowds, and we kept them there the whole time. And I mean, because we were just ripping it down. And props to this dude named Brent that he brought this set. Like, he knows I like my hollow body 335. Mine's an Epiphone that I did some modifications to. Probably talked about it on the in past podcasts. But I'm doing that thing, and he had seen me at the jam night there, because they have a jam on Wednesday nights at this place. And like the week before, he was in there and had this 74 ES335, beautiful guitar, man. And he's like, hey, you want to play this thing? I'm like, heck yeah, I want to play that thing, And so I get up there. Well, he comes to our show and brings that guitar, and I play like my first set with my guitar, and he goes, well, you want to play that other guitar? I brought it. And it's like, heck yeah, dude, I'll play it at the gig. And so it's just cool to play a vintage Gibson like that.
Yeah.
And just really nice. I mean, it sounds, and the fretboard is so smooth on that thing. It's hey, pupper. But, and that's the thing, I guess. I'm so used to my guitars too, but that one almost just kind of fell in. It felt right, I guess it's a similar body style to what I'm already playing, but it's just like that neck was like butter, I was like, whoa, and that was a really cool experience. And I guess it was super cool because we're sitting there, and a lot of the times, like, I'll have a written down set list of what we're gonna do, and we were working up some Ted Nugent stuff, and I just like looked over to Travis after we played a song. I was like, well, what do you want to play, man? Because it's like, we've got maybe 25 minutes left, half an hour left of this gig. I'm like, well, screw it, what do you guys want to play? Travis goes, well, let's do some of that Nugent stuff, man. And somebody like in the crowd goes, yeah, play some Ted Nugent, man. So I was like, okay. So I'd start like tearing up Great White Buffalo, and just dun, 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 and going after it. And people start like going nuts. They're like, holy crap, this guy can play this, whoa, and we rock right through it. And people were like, yeah, way into it, and they're like, do another one, and I was like, okay, well, since that one went over well, let's play another Ted Nugent song. This one's called Stormtrooping, which I actually started learning because I learned on guitar because you were playing it a lot, and
Yep.
and so I started playing that, which I always knew on bass, I guess, and it's basically the same on guitar. It's pretty similar anyway, but we kind of learned all the stops in that one, I guess, and I guess there's only one type of deal, but they have that little bridge part after the second verse that da na 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 na.
Yeah,
and,
that's a little bit different than everything else. Yeah.
right, and we start like hammering this out, and again, people are like going nuts. And we're like, okay, well, this is going over well, and which I don't ever really expect those like hard rockin' songs to go over too well. I'm like, sometimes there's a lot of people that are like just enjoy the bluesier stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And but those, man, it's you lay them down, and when you lay them down like that, I guess I got to talking with Travis about it, and I was just like, man, if you can go in there, it doesn't matter what kind of music you're playing, but if you go in there and lay it down and blow people's faces and blow their brains,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna like it, whether they like rock and roll or not or whatever. Most people just enjoy live music.
Yeah.
So I mean, you just go in there and if you can lay it down and make it sound pretty good, people are gonna like it, and that's what I've really learned about doing my thing, because when we started the Night Prowlers, it was basically just for a fun thing that's kind of turned into a little more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And we always said, well, we're gonna play the music we want to play. I don't take a lot of requests. I will if I know of something like, hey, can you guys play this band, or whatever. Oh yeah, play CCR. Okay, I know Born on the Bayou. I'll play that for you, which is never a song we actually play, but if somebody requests something like that, whatever, fine, I'll play it. But for the most part, we always just play the stuff we want to play, and I guess that's the fun part for me. My favorite part about it. So.
Oh, well, it looks like we're gonna have a little interruption. The dog's in here now. Hey, dog. Excitable dog, not to be confused with excitable boy. Yeah, so I mean, like that's a big distraction going on here for people watching on the Patreon. You get it, but you're probably used to it by now. But yeah, so I mean, when we first started playing, I feel like you and I kind of like I was barely. As weird as it sounds, I was probably like where you're at now was probably where I was, generally speaking, like experience-wise, like when you and I first met each other. So like, just add another 3 years to that. And I mean, I'm not trying to say I'm more experienced than you, because I'm not a front man. I'm not singing and playing places, and I'm not covering 4-hour shifts all by myself pretty much, Not that you're doing it by yourself, but you're, when you play with your band, you're pretty much, I don't want to say in charge, but you're kind of in charge. You're leading the pack up there,
Yeah, it really is just, those guys are playing rhythm, and I'm doing whatever the hell I want.
Mm-hmm.
But, and it's, like I say, I leave it open to whatever those guys want to do behind me, too, as long as it sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the one thing, like, we were doing, like, 4-hour shows,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just like, man, I'm not doing another 4 hour, because me being the one guy singing lead, like Bob sang a couple, like maybe 2 songs back then.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, man, my vocal cords like can't handle going balls to the wall, like that for 4 hours at a time. And it was like literally, it would be, I would play one of those and I would like drop to my knees when it was all done and like just lay down for a little bit. Like I go to a booth or something at a bar and I just sit there and like lay my head down. And I was like dehydrated, even though I've been chugging water all night,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just like, whoa, my head's banging because I've been freaking, I don't want to say screaming, but singing rock and roll is not an easy thing for that long. So I'm like, I'm playing like 3 hours
Mm-hmm.
from now on.
Yeah.
And and that's cool. And especially we got this, actually, I don't know if you know, but we've had this dude named Freddie Jones. He's this older cat from Cedar Rapids. He plays harp, and
Mm-hmm.
he's incredible. But he sits in with us, and that makes it easier.
Yeah.
On me, I guess. I don't have to play every solo. I don't have to do as much. It just that little bit helps me tenfold.
Yeah, it's kind of weird too, because like I understand that concept quite a bit. Playing in Jesse's band for the last year and having Owen on bass for the last year was pretty fun. Because if I ever had that like brief little burnout feeling where I was just like, I don't want to play a solo, or like I take a little bit of a break. I just like look over at Owen and point at him, and it's just like engage in a way he would go. So it is nice to have somebody else around that can kind of like, take a little bit of weight off of you if necessary, especially
Right.
if you're out there, like I said, like playing all the leads or whatever it is.
Well, and that's the one thing too. Another thing you brought up in the Clint podcast is like remembering lyrics.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like, dude, that's one thing. Like playing 3 hours, or whatever, remembering every lyric to every song. There's been a lot of times and people don't notice it just because I kind of to the point where I'm getting away with it. I'll forget something and I'll just start ad-libbing stuff. I'll just throw it in there. And it sounds really good, and I'll be like, after the show, I'll be like, hey, Travis, remember when we were playing this song, like, and I ad-libbed a whole verse, like, and it sounded badass. I want to listen to the recording of that, And, but yeah, we've gotten to the point now where it's, like I said, it's like, there's a lot of freedom there, and we play everything our way, and that's my favorite part about it, like I said before, is we play everything the way we want to play it, and we don't care who you are. You're either going to like it or you don't. And like I said, usually when you're laying it down and you lay it down good, people like it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, I think some of that comes down to the fact that, I mean, regardless of the fact that you've got to, if for people that don't know, like go listen to the full band podcast I did with you guys, but your bassist is blind, so he's not going to be very high energy on stage. He can only move so far safely.
right.
Because I've seen you guys playing on like, 4 or 5 foot stages, and it's like, yeah, you don't want to tumble off that thing. So, and then your other person's a drummer, so he's sitting in one spot the whole time. So it's like kind of up to you to be the person that's high energy or whatever. And I do think that you have like a good attitude for like a front man. You have the ability that people can tell that you're having a good time and you're putting a lot into it and they enjoy what you're doing, and you can interact with people, like that are out in the crowd, etc., very well while you're up there playing. I think that goes a long ways.
Well, that too, and I want to touch on this. I actually just bought a wireless unit for my guitar. Best decision I've ever made. I was always like so old school about it, like, oh, it's gonna ruin my tone and blah blah blah. It doesn't. Like, I can't even tell the difference with this one. It's like a X5 or something like that, but awesome, sounds good. And I've been using that lately, and man, that's fun. I can jump down and I can run around and do some fun things. Go out there while I'm ripping a guitar solo and dance with the people that are out there, and that's really fun to do. And that's another thing, man, is people don't care what you're playing if you're laying it down, and if they see you're having fun and like you're not nervous or you're not like, oh, yada yada. They see you having fun, they're gonna have fun, and that's just what it is, man. People are like feed off the energy, and that's I think that's another part too, is when anybody out there listening that maybe wants to play music or whatever, or maybe gets nervous sometimes about it, just go out there and have fun. There's no, man, I get a little bit nervous. I wouldn't say I'm as nervous as I used to get. But now it's like more of the nerves, I guess, is like oh man, I'm getting jacked up and ready to play a show, and I think the big part about that is just have fun. Like, it doesn't matter, And another thing Clint brought up in the last one, people aren't gonna know when you mess up if you can hide it good enough,
That's true. That's true. I mean, that there are situations where that happens. So like, it's gonna sound weird to say, but like, it doesn't have to just be like, if you're playing leads and you play a wrong note, try and hide it by playing it again or whatever, or like,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. I mean, sometimes you're playing in the rhythm section will mess something up, and it's just like, oh, that actually made like what I was soloing kind of not sound as good,
Right.
So, I mean, it happens all the time, but like you said, if you can hide it well enough or whatever, it's totally okay. Like, there's sometimes when I'm playing live and instead of like playing the rhythm part that I have in my mind that I feel like I should play, I'll just like start playing background leads instead. And like, a lot of times that'll be in a song where it's like, oh, I'm just bored of playing this this is the 4th verse. All right, I'm just going to play background leads. And it's like, oh, it actually kind of sounds good because it feels like the song is built up to something that's going to end now because everything changed, and there's no longer just somebody ripping out a background
Right.
rhythm guitar section, so.
I totally get where that is too. I actually did that the other night because Clint, I was playing your rig actually at Byron's, and I didn't really know the progression of one of these songs, but I knew it enough to where I just started playing like what you're saying, kind of a background lead, and I was playing like all the correct notes, like all the chords that Clint's playing at the same time. I would hit them in the like little lead thing, and I'd kind of hold it for a second, then I'd switch and go to something else and lead, into the next note, I guess you would say. But yeah, man, that's always fun to do.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I feel like it's a bailout too, where you're just like, there's too many chords in this, but I know you're in this key, so let's just see if I can rip some leads behind it instead, like instead of trying to like figure out like, okay, you're playing open chords with a capo here, which means I would have to, if I want to play something different, I'd have to like bar chord it over here, and you're like trying to run all the analytics in your head as to like where your hands should be. But I think going to jam nights has definitely helped me out quite a bit with that. Also, just like playing with Clint, I mean, I just said it as much as everyone, knows that's played with him. It's just like, he's got the capo on 4 this time, and the next time it's on 9,
Right.
and it moves all over the place. So you have to be able to kind of.
I'd say that's one thing I learned a lot from the playing in the country band dude is like he uses the capo a lot. And
Yeah.
and now I'm good enough to where I'm like, oh, you're playing like a D shape on the 4th fret. That's a G, like, so it's in the key of G, and I can do whatever I want in the key of G, if I don't know all the chords, but I think what I have fun with playing in the country band is stuff like that, where it's like, there's a little more freedom because I'm not the only guitar player, to play rhythm. As we're in a 3-piece, I'm hammering down the rhythm a lot, unless we're playing something like Going Down, where lately I used to play it with Travis, the dun 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 dun, but now I've just been doing it like Freddie King does it, man. Like I'd kind of do some of the rhythm sometimes, but I'll be like, I'm going down, I'm going wow, no, 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 wow, and I crank something out, and kind of let Travis take it because Travis is getting real good, and he's on it, and I like that last show we played I was telling you about, we tore it down. Like that's one of the better shows we've ever played, I think. And I looked at Travis and he goes, well, I messed up here, messed up there. I was like, dude, nobody out there knew. Like,
Yeah.
Nobody knew because I said, I can pick out 3 songs that I know for sure you played like one wrong note in. I said, to understand that you've only been playing bass for like 3 years after you lost your vision, dude, like that's pretty good for 3 hours worth of music.
Yeah,
like,
no kidding.
Where you mess up 3 notes, like that I could tell anyway. And usually I'm pretty on that, like I can hear everything. Like that is the weird part about being a musician. You're up there and you're like, oh man, I hope nobody heard that. Well, usually they don't. Like unless there's other musicians out there. Like, nobody ever knows when you're messing up, man.
Yeah, and I feel like, I mean, maybe this is just my perspective on the whole thing, but I notice a lot when people mess up, but I also forget, like, instantaneously, because it's like, I know what that feels like. I've done it before, especially, like, you and I are kind of just, we have a set thing that we kind of do, but we also kind of just play off the cuff a lot of the time. So like when you're just playing off the cuff, just ripping a random solo, there might be a mistake, especially if you're not hammering the notes out every single time. So it's different every time, but yeah, it's not really something I think too much about, as far as like, wanting to be like, you screwed up, you suck, like that like never crosses my mind ever because I've done it too. I mean, as a matter of fact, this last weekend I recalled, I played one show with Clint, and it was the one at Molly McGuire's, and I had I don't remember what the song was, but I hit like everything throughout the whole song was great. It was like all just like perfectly in time. Everything was hitting right where I wanted it to, and then I got to like the end of this second solo section that I was doing, and just blasted a horribly wrong note. And so then I was just like, all right, let's see if we can correct this. And I hit another horribly wrong note. And the rule should be if you hit a wrong note, go 1 fret over in any direction because that's going to be a correct note, But what do that's not what I did, and it sounded horrible, and cursed myself out on the stage, like
Right.
while still trying to play the rhythm.
Yeah,
Just
right. You're like sitting there like
what?
God damn it.
Yeah, what the heck was that? You know? Yeah, in more or less words. But yeah, it's funny because those are the ones where it's just like, yeah, everyone noticed that. Like,
Right.
there's no way somebody couldn't have noticed that, you know?
And the crazy thing is, dude, is even then, because I've done that, and I was like, man, you know, like, oh, if I could get that one right or something over the mic, you know, and people were like, what are you talking about, man? Like, you guys
Yeah.
just ripped that down. Like,
Yeah.
okay, like, cool.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there are a lot. I tend to think a lot of people are nicer than like a lot of other people just give them credit for. Just even in general society, you know, terms, you know. I mean, you go online and people are pretty outspoken about certain things, but then when you go meet them live, like, and have an actual human interaction with them, it's like, these people actually aren't that bad, you know,
Right.
like, so.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's usually the case, I will say.
Yeah.
Not always.
That's the one thing I don't like about the internet, too. And it's like, you have people out there, like, I'm sorry, but anything I say on the internet, I'm going to probably say to your face. And then, like, there are other people out there that'll say something, and they'll be like, you know, you talk to them in person, they'll be like, oh, you know, buddy. It's like, dude, you remember what you just said to me?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, that doesn't just go away, man. Like, I could look that up right now. Just because you typed it on something doesn't mean you didn't say it, you know?
That's true. Yeah. And I mean, like, some of the thing about, like, I was talking with somebody about this recently, like, text messaging and an online speaking with one another, it's not very easy to portray, like, your intentions, because you don't have body language and context and, like, facial emotions
Right.
and things like that to go off of. So you can't really... I mean, it's weird when somebody says something really mean and then, like, afterwards they're just like JK, and it's like, okay, is that a joke, or is that like an extra slam because you were just like, oh yeah, just kidding, you know, like, because I still can't tell, you know.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, in person you can tell when somebody's being sarcastic for the most part from the, you know, the way they say something.
Yes.
You know, if you read something like a text or something, I'll be like, what the fuck? Oh, fuck you.
Yeah, can confirm. Like, I do want to ask you, did you end up getting your band page, like, with multiple people being able to post on it and do stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Because, I mean, everyone's probably been there before, but, you know, you're no stranger to the...
I'm off of a 30-day ban here in like 4 hours, man.
That's hilarious. I was going to let you say it, but yeah. Vince has been known to take some social media hiatuses in the past. But yeah, so I mean, like, I do get what you're saying, and it's tough for me. I do remember being your age and having the internet, though, too, and just being, like, brash and cocky. And I also, like, believe it or not, for everyone watching on Patreon, like, I used to have as much hair as Vince too when I was his age.
Yeah, right.
So cherish it while you can.
Cherish it.
Oh, the Billy Madison, it's hilarious. But yeah, so, like, I don't know, it's really fun because I think that's one of the things that originally draw me to you, like, as a person, was like, I see a lot of myself, like, my young self in Vince, you know. And that's not to say Vince is gonna, like, you know, get a soul-sucking job and lose all his hair in like 5 to 10 years, but, like, at the same time, you know.
Dude, that's the one thing too about working, dude. I can't, you know, there's some jobs I've had that I absolutely loved. Then some I've had where like, what the hell am I doing here still, man? You know, so I can't stick in environments like that. I really can't, because it's so depressing. But
yeah, it's weird because it's like, I don't want to get into it, but it is a great job. But
right.
I think some of it is just like working remotely and sitting alone all day is kind of like, this
That's the
sucks,
thing,
you know.
dude.
Even though I can call someone like anytime I want and talk to them and like video talk with them, but it's still not quite the same.
right.
But like kind of along those lines of having like a soul sucking job, like I've talked to you a little bit about this and with some other people, but like I'm fighting some sort of like weird like burnout feeling where it's like I'm doing too much of something and I can't figure out what it is, and I'm like having a hard time balancing like work and music and hobbies, you know.
Right.
But I played like 70 some shows last year, which is, for me, it might as well be a bazillion shows, you know.
That's a lot of shows
Yeah.
either way, man.
Yeah, not everyone I got paid, you know, and some of them were labor of love. And if you count in jam nights, it's probably like 120 shows I, played last year.
Right.
But at the same time, like it's kind of weird that like it really doesn't matter. Even if I don't want to go play a show like on a particular night, like if I'm just like, I gotta pack my car and do stuff, like, you know, because it is kind of a job. By the time I'm there on stage playing, for some reason, like, it doesn't ever like recur to my brain that like it wouldn't be fun, you know?
Right.
It's so weird. Like, I do like the first time that occurred to me was when I played a show at the Loft in Waterloo with Jesse, and like as crazy as it sounds, there was like a field fire at my house, and we were like trying to put it out without calling the fire department. So like we were doing like a controlled burn that was still in control, but it was pretty rough going for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, like I was like literally like looked like I had a sunburn, like because I was out there like, you know, fighting a fire, literally, you know. And I was out there like in the clothes I was gonna wear to the show, and then I had to like go to the show in like grubby old jeans and things like that. It was just like, this is so horrible. Like I torn up jeans like I'm in an '80s band. But
hey, that's okay, man.
But it's playing the show, I was just never like, I had forgot all about like all the bad stuff that had happened to me earlier in the day. Like it never once occurred to me until I was like halfway home, and I was like, oh yeah, that's why my car smells like a fire, is because I drove over here like right after I fought a fire. You know.
And that's another thing about you guys were talking, you and Clint, about how like something about, you know, looking, you know, there's a certain look you might have or whatever. Like you're in the band, you know, you can dress however you want to dress. Because you just said something about that. It reminded me of this and the ZZ Top documentary on Netflix. Mm-hmm. Like they're talking about, we opened for the Rolling Stones in Hawaii like for 3 nights straight. And Keith Richards wore the same clothes every single day, the same white pants. And, I mean, mid-70s, Keith Richards is pretty drugged out at this point. But yeah. He's like, these white pants, you could tell they were white, but they were more like a yellowish brown. It's like he had been wearing them the whole tour, and that's all he wore. You know? But it's like, I mean, you're into Rolling Stone. You're Keith Richards. I guess you can look however you want to look, and I guess that's why I got the chops thing or whatever. Yep. You know, it's like I'm a rock and roll band. I'm gonna look like I'm in a rock and roll band. It's like I don't want to say it's not my personality, because it is. Like you look at me and it's like, God, yeah, that's probably pretty fitting for him. You know.
Yeah, but, yeah, of course.
If you know me, especially too, but you know, I guess it's more like and I don't take it too seriously in the point where it's like, I've got to look a certain way, but I like to go out there and when I play shows, it's not like, you know, I'm there to do anything else but play music, and that's how I take it pretty serious in that aspect. Like I don't really talk to a lot of people unless they like approach me or somebody says, hey man, you know, great job, you know, come here, and I'm very nice, but at the end of the day, I'm there to just play, entertain people, and that's what I like to do. And it's almost like a certain, you know, a character, you know. And David Lee Roth has talked about this too. He's like, man, you know, in the early days of Van Halen, you'd think I'm some crazy maniac. You know, I'm actually a pretty smart dude that's just a character I put on, you know. And it's most of the stuff I do on stage, it's all, you know, it's all part of my inner personality that I don't get to show. You know, it's like, hey, man, I just like to have fun, you know, and this is my way of showing you I'm having fun. And that was one thing about it, too, that last show we played, some lady was like, hey, man, you guys are throwing down, you know, and I said, oh, thanks, you know, I appreciate that. I just, you know, I may not be the best guitar player in the world or nothing, but I just have fun with it. And she goes, yeah, I can tell, like, you have a lot of fun with it, and it's super refreshing to see somebody young like you up there, you know, playing. Young, yeah, but I turned 27 tomorrow.
Oh wow! Heck, you're older than I thought you were. Tomorrow being the day this comes out.
Yes.
Happy birthday!
Yeah, thanks,
it's Vince's birthday today, everybody.
Yeah, but no, I actually said that because Cammie said something to me. You know, well, some guy, I was at the park with River, and some guy walked through with a big Great Dane, and I talked to this guy, and we were talking about it, and Cammie goes, well, is he a young guy, or like, was he a younger guy? And I said, I don't know how to define that anymore, but I would say no. You know, like,
yeah, it's really funny when your definition of an old guy like changes. Like when you're like in high school, it's like anybody 30 is like 1,000 years old.
Right.
You know? And now I'm like, I'm like aging on or erring on the side of age. It's just like, like old is like 80 or so. You know, like,
Right.
like a lot of people don't even live to 80, unfortunately.
Right.
But like, it is pretty funny to think about how that window changes. But it's weird because like when I met you, you were 20.
I was probably 22 or 23.
Or 3. Yeah. So like, to me, you're just like burned in my brain that age forever.
Right.
So like, you know?
Shoot, I couldn't even grow facial hair like this back then.
That's wild. It's so wild to think. And like you are now the age that you met me at, which is kind of crazy to think about too.
Right.
You know, or pretty close to it anyways, 27 or 8. So that's pretty wild, you know, to think that time is going like that. You know, and like I said, when I looked at that thing where it said that it was 3 years ago that we did like our first episode together.
Yeah.
And it's really also pretty funny to look at that picture. Like you got short hair and everything. You do look young in that picture, as wild as it sounds, but it's also, facial hair and stuff now. So,
Well, that and, man, as looking back, actually that Rockin' Picnic show we did was the last time I've had a haircut.
oh, wow.
So, like, well, I had long hair leading up to that. Then we went on vacation, me and my brothers and my dad, to Colorado to see some friends and family. And I ended up, like, shaving, like, it was hotter than hell, middle of summer, and we're outside drinking all day and playing bags and doing stupid things. And I'm just like, man, my hair keeps getting in my face. Let's just shave it off. And so Taylor, this guy, he shaves my head. I said, I want a freaking mohawk, dude. He's like, I can do that. He shaves his. It was actually a pretty cool looking mohawk in my hair. And then like 2 weeks later, I just ended up shaving it and taking the razor and completely shaving it off. So in that Rockin' Picnic show, I'm wearing a hat. And, which I don't usually wear hats on, at shows or whatever. But, now anyway, because I got my hair growing out and I'm like, cool, But that's, a year and a half ago was the last time I had a haircut. So I just let it grow since then.
That's pretty awesome, though. Like, somebody did ask me recently, like, what's the deal with all the younger people having long hair? And by younger people, I mean, this was somebody that was maybe like 40, but it's still like, they were like anyone in their 20s, or teens. It just seems like all the guys have long hair. And it's like, I don't know. I had long hair when I was growing up.
Right.
There's a lot of people that had long hair growing up. And it is making like a pretty big comeback. And it does look pretty cool when you're playing guitar.
Right.
Like, let's be honest.
Dude, I just love headbanging and just the hair, or like, it's almost like a mystic thing. Like when I'm ripping out a solo or something, and like my hair's just in front of my face, and you can't even see me at that point, or I'm not even looking at my guitar. I got my eyes closed or something, but you can't even see my eyes out there. People are like, "Oh man, that's pretty cool how you can do that. How do you know what you're doing?" I don't. I just go.
Yeah.
I don't. I think another thing, I guess, I don't want to bring up like everything you guys talked about on the last podcast, but just touching on it, like somebody said something about Ober saying, "Oh, practice is where you can think about stuff." And when you're playing, just the practice is kicking in.
Yep.
And like when I'm playing, like I've told this to Travis all the time. I'm like, man, I'll be playing a solo, and then I'll like wake up, and I'll be like, whoa, where do I go now? I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing right now. I'm just playing something melodic, and I'm like, oh, okay, well.
Oh, yeah, it was back to rhythm guitar at this point. And then you're like, what key am I in? Like, I've done that before, too, though, where, like, I get done, and then I have to, like, look back over, like, what are you playing? Like, oh. Like, it's so weird, because you're, like, you just ripped a whole solo in it, but you can't, like, you get so in the zone, you forget, Yeah, it does happen. And it's, it also comes back to, I think, me and Clint were also talking about being, like, flexible as a musician. Some of that comes down to, like, possibly ad-libbing. Like, I know a lot of people that do a lot of ad-libbing at shows just because they're comfortable with it, and it kind of makes things easier and more fun, to an extent. I would also argue, though, that, like, I've played with bands where it's like, these are the things you exactly have to play at the exact same times with no fluctuation at all. And that's pretty easy, because once you get the pattern down, you don't even have to come close to looking at your guitar once while you're playing,
Right.
And so it's just like one of those things, you look at it when it starts and you're like, whatever, all right, I'm good. I can play the whole song from here. And I think that also has its ease and simplicity as well, compared to just playing whatever you want to an extent.
Well, that too, and one thing I've noticed and I've tried to kind of incorporate into the Night Prowlers playing is hey man, you know, I've seen all these other bands do like they're doing like these stops where the whole band stops and comes right back in like a measure later or whatever there, or the guitar player and the bass player are playing a melodic thing together. And you know, I'm like, oh man, you know, so we started playing Snakeskin Cowboys by Ted Nugent, another Nugent song we're doing, and that's got like the 3 stops in it or whatever, where they go back to like they stop and they go back to the intro to that song, and it's so cool. I'm like, oh man, if we pull this off, man, people are like brains will be fried. Even though there's literally like no lyrics to that song, it's literally a pre-chorus and chorus, the whole song repeated, you know, but there's just stops that make it super unique, you know, and it's like, oh man, that's super cool. Like, let's do something like that, or you know, because there's this band out of Cedar Rapids called the Evan Stock Band.
I love them. Yeah, they were in Humboldt once, and I saw them play. They're very good,
dude. Yeah, I mean, because I compared them back there. I was like, well, you know, if you guys like this band, you need to check out this band called Brutal Republic, because that's another 3-piece that reminds, you know, they're pretty similar.
Yep.
Like, I'd like to see a show with those 2 bands.
That'd be pretty
you
killer.
know,
Yep.
because they're both I mean, just excellent musicians, and they just knock it out of the park, man. And it's just like, yeah, I want to do stuff like that, or you know, Matt, you know, I always talk about Matt Woods too. He's more on the very bluesy side of things.
Yep.
But like when he's got his 3-piece together, you know, they've played together so much now that him and the bass player will just start going off and playing the same exact solo that Matt's playing, and they kind of just repeat it over and over. And I've kind of done that like in a song I wrote called Aged Red Wine. There's this break in the middle of it that's like I play a bluesy type solo. Well, I was like, Travis, you know how to play this song Bitch by the Rolling Stones, and it's in the same key, it's an A. And so I was like, I'm going to start playing that in the middle of this, you know, just that, the bitch riff is what we call it, in the middle of this solo, and if you want to play it with me, it's going to sound freaking dope. You know, and so we've been pulling that off, and it's just right in the middle of the song where both the guitar and bass, you know, it just sounds cool to do stuff like that. And I guess that's just me growing as a musician too, you know, and understanding, man, that's like, if that's blowing my brain, you know, as a musician, when other guys do it, it's got to be blowing everybody else's brain.
Well, maybe to an extent. Some of that I feel like is music for musicians when it gets to that point. Especially when you're like you said, it's like, we're going to play song A, but in the middle, in the solo section, we're going to slam the main riff for song B in there, and we're not even going to play song B like ever in the whole set. We're just going to tease it like in the middle of this song for no reason and see if somebody catches on, you know. But the people that are catching on are the people that are like really listening, or the people that, you know, enjoy the songs you're playing, etc. You know, and that's kind of a like a trick that I saw a lot of like the jazzier kind of guys do. Like, what was it? Victor Wooten does stuff like that every now and then when he's playing live, where they'll just slam like, you know, a weird riff in the middle of something and start.
Well, I think it adds just a whole crazy dynamic. You know, it adds this dynamic to a song that's like, oh, instead of doing this over and over, you're like all of a sudden playing something else. And it's like, you know, I've seen a lot of guys do it now, but you know, I started seeing more and more bands doing that and looking around, and people are like, wow, you know, that was cool how they did that. And I'm like, I want to do that too, you know, because I guess it's not really trying to copy somebody else, but it's really just trying to be more dynamic and kind of growing as a musician is what it is, what I look at it, you know. And
yeah, I don't think it's copying either. Like at first, I was always mad when it was just like, somebody took my idea to play this song live. Or it's like it's no copying. You know, there's a lot of songs that I've played live that I never ever heard live, and then all of a sudden other people started taking them, and it was just like, go for it. Like if you like the song, go for it. Especially if you're out there playing the songs live, and I'm not doing it. You know, who am I to be like, that's my jam night song, you don't get to play. You know, that's so. Right. But also at the same time, like, there's things that I've borrowed from a lot of other people just to grow as a musician. Like one of the things I remember, and this was an a conversation I had with Jeremy Ober long before it was ever brought up on the podcast. But like, if you want to be in a high energy band, you have to be high energy on stage. You know, and that's kind of something we were alluding to earlier, which is that's where the idea comes from, or at least for me. You know, and I used to go watch Jeremy play live, and he would be like stomping all over the stage and things like that, and I mean, he'd be dumping sweat by the time the show was over. And it's like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do if you want to be in a high energy band,
Right.
you know? And I get it. Not everyone wants to do that. And not, you know, in your case, not everyone necessarily can, because, you know, we described that earlier. Your bassist is blind and your drummer's sitting. So that leaves it up to you, and you do a fine job of it, you know? Where like when I play with Three Finger Betty, I always try to like crank it up as much as possible, because it's like, this should be, you know, running downhill fast music, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So people should think that you're having a good time, you know? And
Well, that's one thing too, and especially like if we are playing like a smaller stage or even a bigger stage, like I'll just run over to Travis and I'll be like, "Hey, what's up, man?" Like in the middle of my solo, like, "Hey, I'm right here," you know, or whatever. There was one time, I think we were kind of lit, but I I walked up to him, I started like thrusting into it. Like playing a guitar solo, and he didn't even know it, you know. I didn't even tell him.
oh, it's classic.
And after the show, because Bob, you can hear Bob laughing, and after the show, I'm like, yeah, man, you know, and everybody's like, dude, that guitar player's like kind of all over the place, you know. And I was like, oh yeah, because Travis mentioned something, somebody said that to him, and he's like, yeah, what were you doing? And I was like, oh, man. I was like, I forgot. I was going to tell you, but I forgot about it. But now, yeah, let me tell you about this. I was thrusting you, man. I was just like, oh.
That's hilarious.
Just being totally raunchy about it.
Yeah, raunch and roll. Raunch and roll, as the t-shirt says.
Yeah, right.
Yep. Yeah, my Vinny and the Night Prowlers shirt. Not to mention my Vinny and the Night Prowlers hat
Man,
that I've worn
saw
on
that
many
over
a
there.
podcast, you know. So.
Yeah, gotta love it. Thanks for representing, bro.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like that time I went and ran sound for you, it was just like, all right, I'm going to turn around and give you like a third of the money you paid me and just give me your merch, you know?
I probably should have just given you the shit.
No. It was totally worth it to just turn around and pay you for it. 'Cause it's like, I kind of earned it a little bit this time, you know? So, yeah. I think it's really fun to, like, have you out there playing shows live. And, you know, like, I've seen you show up to, like, gigs I've played. I've gone to a couple you've played, even though you don't play too much in this area. Most of it's over in eastern Iowa, which is, you know, pretty cool. That's where you're originally from and things like that. So you get like a whole different exposure than a lot of us around here get in the north central Iowa area, I guess you could call it. So, like the Byron show would be like a good example. So like I played a show with Byron's last weekend with Clint Riedel, and you showed up, and then it was just like, Vinny, you can play songs. Go up there and play, you know? And, you know, Clint knows some songs that you know, and he was just like, Vinny likes playing this song. Here we go, you know?
Well, most of the part of that is, you know, those songs that I play that Clint knows is because Clint plays them, and I heard Clint play them. I'm like, oh man, I want to play that song, you know. And "Angels from Montgomery" by John Prine's one of those songs that I love playing, even though that's not like a super rockin' song, you know. But I turn it into like a blues song that we do. It's one of the slower ones we do. You know that. Oh, speaking of forgetting lyrics. We did this mashup of some Elvis Presley song and Folsom Prison the other night, me and Clint, when I was playing with them. I think it might have been "That's All Right" by "That's All Right, Mama" by Elvis Presley, but I can't remember which one it was. I knew it was an Elvis song. And so we go into it, and he's like wanting me to sing the Folsom Prison parts, and I just totally mind blanked. So every time like I'd be playing a solo, he goes, all right, you know, and he'd turn over at me and he'd say like the first line of the verse.
Yep.
And I'd be like, okay, I think I got it now. And I'd sing it, you know. I'd be like looking at him.
Oh, yeah. I love doing that stuff, because I mean that's something that obviously that's enough to trip your memory for that, but even playing when somebody's just like, we're going to the A, you know, and it's just like, okay, you know. Right. But also you also have to remember, like, if somebody's got a capo and they're like, we're going to the A, and it's like, A with a capo on this though, okay, so we're going to this, you know. Like capoed 5, so we got to play a D, okay, all right, rock and roll, you know. Like, so there are some of that like you also have to think about. But did you ever think when you were first starting playing that you would be where you're at today, I guess? Like, was this ever like a dream that you had, or was your dream bigger than this? Or not being on a podcast, but, you know, being in a band, having somebody like essentially like invite you or recruit you to their band to kind of play some side gigs now and then. And
Yeah, that's another thing too. I was gonna touch on that Thai dude you met the other night, but no, man, I always wanted to play rock and roll. I've always been obsessed with music. You know, I was just played it as a hobby for a long time. I started on bass. I guess I started on trombone, playing in junior high and stuff, and I was like, I'll always love music, and always loved rock and roll and blues, and so I started playing bass and kind of took it from there, and you know, whatever, and I never really realized any of that stuff. Like you know, it's not something I don't want to be in a band. You know, it was never a thing I'd ever thought would happen. But then, like I said, you took me to Bode that one time. I'm like, shit, man, I want to do this more. Then I got home for summer, and I barely knew how to play guitar at the time. You know, I knew open chords and I couldn't even bar chord, like, you know, a G major bar chord. I could not play that. You know, I could play a power chord, and didn't know anything about scales or nothing. That goes back to the, you know, I walk into Travis's house with a buddy and he's got a whole setup, you know, like a room full of instruments. Yeah, we've been jamming, man. Every Wednesday night we've been jamming in here. I was like, no shit. I said, okay, I'm going to bring over my guitar tomorrow, you know, and my amp. And I started in Merle and Robert Zahorik, this guy from back home, Robert. Oh man, bless him, dude. He taught me a bunch of cool rock and roll songs, like yeah, some of that Rolling Stones stuff we do. But that High Heel Sneakers song, there's this lick in that song he taught me how to do and taught me how to play that song, and it's just a cool way he played it. And you know, so I started doing that, and then it goes back to like the Kevin Burt story. You know, I met him, and then I go to his jam or whatever, and pull out my guitar. I was like, man, I can only play rhythm. He goes, oh man, just do this. You know, shows me the BB King blues box and some of that other stuff, and I played my first solo ever that night. And Kevin looks at me, he's like, you know, oh, if you want to hear that story, go back to other podcasts. But you know, he just kind of looks at me. He's like, I thought you said you'd never done this before. I was like, I hadn't, man. He goes, well, that was pretty freaking good for your first time, you know, keep at it. And that's where I kind of realized, you know, I can do this if I put my mind to it. And I never really, me and Travis had always talked about, you know, I'd go over and jam with Travis all the songs he knew in the band he played in, Contagious Behavior, and we just kind of fumbled around like, hey, we should start a 3-piece, you know, or whatever. I'd love to start a 3-piece blues rock band, whatever. And then Bob fell into the picture. He's like, well, I'll play with you guys. You know, he just showed up to one of their jams one time. Yeah, well, you know, the next day he's like coming around, yeah, I'll bring my kid over. Let's jam. So we did, and now it's where we are now. And I had already written a bunch of songs by that point, too. So I was just like, just for fun, you know, just I was sitting around and I'd play something and I'd put some lyrics to it. And I'd be like, man, you know, that sounded cool. And so we just started playing our whatever we wanted to play. I guess go back to earlier in the podcast, I said, man, if we want to do this, like, I just want everybody to know we're going to play the music we want to play. And that's it. And now it's to the point where, man, I've got easily an album worth of material to put down. And I want to start going in that direction, like where, hey, half of my show, or at least, you know, a good chunk of my show is original material.
That's awesome.
And because it fits in with everything we play. It's like just blues rock stuff, man. It's just fun. And I have fun playing the original stuff, and I've come up with these different licks to make it. Yeah, I have actually seen my songwriting grow within like the last 2 years or whatever. Like, at first it was just basic chord structure stuff, you know, kind of like a 1-4-5 thing a little bit. Not necessarily, but I compare it to that. And then, you know, I started adding in like intros, like intricate licks and intros, and then playing, you know, and then, you know, playing verse, chorus, and then going back to that intro, kind of like the Snakeskin Cowboys thing, you know, just because I started seeing those bands like the Evan Stock Band with their original material. That's what they were doing, and it just blew my brain. I'm like, man, like, okay, like, I kind of want to write something like that. And it turns out, like, a couple of those songs are really neat, and I love to play it. So it's just fun, man.
Yeah. Oh, I think that, you know, there's so many things I see other musicians doing that just kind of, I don't want to say jealous, but I'm envious of. I'm envious of the fact that you like started writing songs and just stuck with it, and now you're, like you said, I can tell your songwriting capabilities have grown like in 2 years to the point where it's good, you know. Not that your original songs weren't good, but
I appreciate that, dude.
not many people's first songs are the best, you know. But like, I can't ever crack the case on that one. I can't ever get a whole song out. I get like half an idea out, and I'm like, this is hot garbage, and then I just throw it away.
Man, dude, I do want to say, don't ever throw it away, because I've thrown away so much stuff that I've looked back on, and I'm like, that was a cool freaking riff, man. Why'd I ever like throw that one out? You know, because I actually just the other day went back on my phone and I'm looking through my videos, because I'd used to like just play something that I had come up with and save it in my phone, and then I put lyrics down to it, but I threw those out. And I always thought I was a bad lyricist, so I'm like, you know, screw this. This isn't good. Tossed it. I'm like, man, I should have kept that. I have so much material here that I could work with. But yeah, that's all I got to say to that. Don't throw them out, man. Keep them, or do a little patch recording of it and keep it somewhere so you can go back and if you get an idea.
Yeah, I should, but I don't know. I honestly haven't finished. I haven't finished an entire song since probably high school. Like, and so it's been a while, and that song was very not enjoyable, like in retrospect. So it just sucks though, because like in my brain I hear stuff that is so much more out of my capabilities, you know. I'm sure you're the same way though too. Like, I'm hearing this, but it just can't come out of my instrument for some reason.
Right. No, that does happen a lot too, and I've got to fumble with it. Like, actually, one of the last songs I wrote, it's called "Sweet Relief," and it's kind of funny, but like I knew what I wanted it to sound like, and I played it all over my guitar, like the intro part, you know, that I wanted to play. And I'm like trying to figure. I'm like, man, I don't know where I want to do this. You know, I don't know the chord, but you know, whatever. I finally, like, after like 20 minutes, figured out what key I wanted to be in, what notes I wanted to throw in. You know, and I'm just like, okay, you know, now I just need to add a little different part to this song and do this or that. But it's just it is a hard thing for, you know, it's not easy. Heck,
No.
I mean, songwriting's not easy at all. But once I get an idea, I'm just like hammering it out real quick and like record it real quick, so I have it.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, I definitely suffer from especially when I played a lot more like metal music and stuff like that. I suffered from you'd play a riff, and then by the time you'd go to like show it to somebody, you're like, I forgot how it went.
Right.
You know, like there's a lot of that went on for sure, which kind of makes me wish I had more stuff recorded, but I'm already pretty much out of space on like everything I have. So like I've got like 4 terabyte hard drives almost full.
Jesus.
With just like podcast stuff. So the links I go through just to have a podcast.
Right.
I'll have backups. But,
Well, I like what you do, man. It's always good to sit down with you too. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, like that. And I did want to touch on that other dude that I brought to the show the other night.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of people who, he was doing sound for us, the country band I'm in, Eli, and we were sitting there, and I met him, and he lives in Fort Dodge, and I started talking to him, and he's like, well, it sounds like we got the same taste or whatever. You should come over sometime and jam, you know. So I go over there, and because you said something, oh, man, it's cool to see you out there, and people, like, kind of, like, recruiting you, I guess, to go play for them or whatever. And he, like, hands me this lap steel, and he's a lefty guitar player. So the lap steel, if I'm playing it right-handed, it's, like, got the strings backwards. And he's like, hey, just try it out. And I jammed for like 8 hours at his house with him and his dad. Like, his dad came down from where he lives, and we just jammed all day. And he's like, yeah, go ahead and take that lap steel with you, because I can't make it sound that good. You can restring it however you want. And I did, and that's been something new and fun to work with. It's definitely something weird,
Yeah.
you know, that I'm not used to, but I'm kind of figuring out some licks to throw in. And it's pretty cool, because I've always wanted to learn pedal steel, and I guess this is a step in that direction too.
Yep.
But you know, that's cool about that, and I never really, I never considered myself like a good guitar player, like at all.
Me either. Not you, but personally, I feel the same way about myself.
Well, I feel like a lot of people feel that way because if you're out there doing it, like you're like, man, I can always get better. You know, I can always do better than what I just did. You know, and it's an endless learning thing. You know, music is in general.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who you listen to; they're going to be able to play something you can't.
Right, and so I went and seen this. Well, I was at a jam night in Cedar Rapids at this Whiskey Joe's place, and there's a place called this little bar. Okay, like it's a dive called Jam O'Malley's, and they have live music every Thursday night, and from like big time dudes playing there, like KB, Kevin Burt plays there, you know, and but you're talking about a 3-piece in an area like as wide as this room, you know, and the bar total, like area wise, is this room and maybe part of the next room right there.
Oh wow!
You know, and I know you guys can't really see that or you know listening to the podcast, but it's a small place, but it's packed in there. And I met this dude named Matt Panic there, or at the jam night the night before, and actually that same night, Tedeschi Trucks were in at the Paramount in Cedar Rapids.
Oh sweet!
Yeah, so he went to that with his bass player or whatever, and some of his band, and then I went and saw his band the next night over at this Jam O'Malley's place, and I get to talking to him. And I'm just like, hey man, I dig your rig, and all he's using is, you know, he had a Les Paul special, which he wasn't playing, but he is playing a Telecaster through Tube Screamer or whatever, Ibanez Tube Screamer, and then straight into this Victoria amp, and those Victoria amps are freaking sweet. I mean, Matt Woods plays them; they sound so good. I was like, man, that's a cool amp. You know, I know another dude that plays Victoria. He's got a bunch of Victoria stuff, man. And you know, his name's Matt Woods. And this Matt Panic guy goes, you know who Matt Woods is? I was like, yeah, man. He's like one of my favorite guitar players. He's like, see, he goes, when I was probably his age now, like he was probably your age coming into the scene. And that's cool to see that, you know. He's like, I remember he showed up to this jam in Des Moines that we were playing, and this dude would sit at the end of the bar, and I finally one day just walked up and said, hey, what's up, man? You know, he just come in there and watch. And he goes, you know, and he's like, I like what you do. And he goes, Matt Panic says to Matt Woods, you know, what do you do? And you know, I'd play the Delta Blues, you know. And Panic tells me, he goes, yeah, I'm thinking, oh, sure, you know, everybody says that, you know. And well, like we get up there and jam with him. He did okay. He goes, then I didn't see him for a while, and I've actually heard this story from Matt Woods himself. I knew exactly what Panic was telling me, because Matt Woods has told me, he goes, man, I went to this jam one time and everybody kind of blew me out of the water, and I didn't go back until I knew I was gonna show some people what I could do. And this Panic dude's like, I didn't see this guy for like 2 years. Next thing you know, like he's opening a show for us, and he goes out there and just blows my mind with how good he got, you know, and playing a slide and doing all of his thing. And so that was just a cool thing to talk about, you know, because that's one of, I mean, if you ever heard me here talk to me, I'm like, you know, people ask me who you know, who do you like to listen to for guitar players, and I'm like, Matt Woods, man. Matt Woods
was my #1 listened to artist last year on Spotify.
Nice.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I love what he does, man. And the 3-piece, his 3-piece is tight, and
yeah, they are.
And but Panic, you know, I even talked to, I told Panic, I was like, well, I'm gonna message Matt, man, tell him I know, you know, I met you or whatever. Well, this Panic dude, that's another thing, because I commented on his rig, so oh yeah, you know, you play or whatever. I saw you at the jam night last night. You want to play with my band quick? I'm like, no, you know, you're pretty good. You know, and he's like, no, man, come on. You know, he goes, well, I guess I don't really know you, but you know some people I know. So go, you know, I've never heard anybody play out of my rig before. So I'm like, okay. You know, I was like, you guys know Going Down? And the bass player and the keys player knew it. And so I was just like, hey, to the drummer, you just got to keep player? Yeah. Tommy Giblin is the keys player. Well, he just kind of sits in with everybody that plays at O'Malley's, but
I feel like that's the secret ingredient that Going Down is missing from like almost every band.
God, you know, it's so awesome to play a key, you know, and so I'm sitting there and I rip it. I mean, you know, going back to I never really thought I was good enough to play with, these guys who I think are superstars, in my band on the local scene, even though they're incredible talents, and I played with his band, and I played that, and everybody was like, I gotta set the guitar down. And like the owner of the bar goes, one more, play another one. And Matt Panic was like, yeah, dude, play another one. That was, you fucking just hauled ass, And so I was like, oh man, I was like, okay, let's play Sweet Home Chicago, because I know that one, it's a blues song. We played that one, and I went and sat down, and that was just a cool thing to do, because I was just like, man, these are guys that have been going at it for 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years in some cases, and they were laying it down that night, and this guy lets me play with them, and then I laid it down with them, and I was like, maybe I am a little better than I thought I was. I know I got a lot of work to do, but it was cool, because then I messaged Matt Woods the next day. I was like, dude, I met this dude that knows you, or whatever, and we got to talking about it. He's like, oh yeah, I know Panic. He's a good guy. He was one of the, like, he told me, one of the dudes when I was young. So that was just pretty refreshing to hear, I guess. Other people, like dudes I look up to, saying, dude, you're sounding good. So
yeah, it's nice to know there's people out there that you can bounce ideas off of, or that will actually hand out compliments, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it's not like it happens a lot, but there is a little bit of gatekeeping in the music community to an extent, like depending on where you're at and what you're doing. But you're just as well aware of it as I am. Like up here, like nobody cares. Nobody's trying to chase anyone out of venues. Nobody's like, I gotta be the only one that gets booked here. I gotta play the most shows or whatever. Everybody just plays the shows, and there's plenty of shows to go around. And there's, within 50 miles of Fort Dodge, there's probably like 20 venues or 30 venues. So it's like there's plenty of places to play and plenty of time and room to do it. So.
Right. And I have actually seen that. See, most of the guys I look up to, like, that Panic dude or Matt Woods or like Clint or you, everybody's so cool about it. Ever since I first met you guys, everybody's been so cool to me, and letting me in on, the lowdown of, where they play or whatever, and playing music with people and helping me a little bit along the way. Everybody kind of has in their own way. And I really haven't seen that in this kind of community. Like, I guess the music I play a little bit more on the countryside for whatever reason. Some of those guys are like,
I feel like they're a little bit more cutthroat.
They're like, because Eli will be like, hey, I asked this dude if, if I could have the booking information for this bar. And the guy told me that, like, no, man, I worked hard to get this information, or blah, blah, blah. It's like, what, you worried about somebody like stealing your thunder, man? Like, what do you mean? Like, there's so many, you can't play there every single day, like, I don't understand that thought process behind it,
That is a weird one. So, like, I at one point in time had a goal to, like, collect as many venues and contact information as I could to what? I don't know. Was I going to start booking shows? I don't know. I have no clue what I was going to do with it. But then I realized it's tough to get people's, like, bar information out of them. Like, you played here this last weekend. Like, who's the person to call there if you want to book a gig or whatever? And it's like, it's tough to get that information out of people a lot of times. More often than not, honestly. But
it is weird how that does work. And it's kind of nice because the Night Prowlers are kind of cracking the scene in Cedar Rapids. So I like really feel like we're going to get into a bunch more places. Like, there's people hearing about us. I feel like every time we play somewhere, we get 10 more followers on Facebook, which is cool, Hey, man, 10 people are looking up, looking to see us again. That's awesome. We're kind of cracking that scene now, and it just feels good to do that because it's such a wide area. Cedar Rapids is big town, for Iowa, I guess. And I know a bunch of other venues we could be playing, and it's, I'm like, man, I can't wait to get these singles done because I'm going to start, I'm going to put some live stuff together, on like a YouTube link, like kind of smash like a little medley of live stuff. I'm going to have Bob do this and then like send these people our singles that we finish and like get that out there. Be like, hey, this is what we do. Like, do you want to book us or not? And if they say, yeah, okay, cool. If not, then fine. I don't really care, you know. Like, but I have a really good feeling about where we're going, and you know, it's I really want to crack Cedar Rapids with that band and just play everywhere. You know, they have people out there and in that area, and then like move out to Des Moines. You know, start doing out there, and you know, because we played a little bit up here. Not much, but with gas the way it is, it's so hard to.
Yeah, it's a lot harder now to justify it than it was.
Yeah, it's just, man, like we allocated a certain amount of money to go to Montana last year too, and it was just like, holy crap, because gas just started skyrocketing, and like so we had been saving up like a certain amount of tip money we would get. Like most of our tip money went towards, you know, other stuff or like sales of our shirts and all that stuff, our merch, like that all went to other things like either buying more merch or, you know, just the ins and outs of
gear and
you know,
things like
yeah, that sort of stuff. And that, I mean, that it's just, it's hard to go so far, especially if you can't like line up a bunch of gigs in one area at once, you know. If I can do that, man, I'd play up here all the time. If I could play like, you know, Friday, Saturday shows up here, you know, I'd bring the band up, you know, every weekend. So, but it's just hard, like, because we haven't played a lot up here, and people don't really know us. There's a select few guys like you and you know, Scott and some other people that know who we are, you know. But other than that, you know, it's just slowly working its way. I kind of told Travis, I was like, man, we're gonna have to, you know, lay it down this year. And it's just going to be another growing year because we've only been doing it for a year. And I said it's going to be a growing year, and after that though, I think there's a possibility, you know, we could go up, start playing bigger venues for sure. And which that's fun. I've already been in contact with people that are, you know, have stuff to do with big venues. Like there's this venue in Iowa City called Wildwoods. You know, and it's just a big music venue. I've seen a bunch of cool bands there. But that and some big time acts too, like Whitey Morgan and the 78s. They're like an outlaw country band. Man, they tore it down in that place. But and Scott had actually seen them the night before somewhere else. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so he's like, oh, that's bad. You know, I posted it or whatever. He's like, oh, I just saw him, you know, or whatever. But yeah, no, it's cool, man. It's just a slow moving thing, and I just hope it gets better, you know.
Oh, well, I mean, it's wild to see how far you've come already. And, you know, if your work ethic continues along the path it's been, yeah, no time at all, you'll be
for sure.
You'll be running the place.
Well, that's just the thing, man. I like sit back and see those bands like, you know, Brutal and the Three Pieces anyway. And I'm just like, man, you know, like they're pretty friggin' good, but for what we got, man, like we can go out there and lay it down.
Yeah.
And I'm just happy that we can do that. Like we can go out there and put on a good show. So, and that's all I care about. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, man. I gotta say thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
I feel like we've talked about pretty much everything everything I had to set out to talk about. Pretty much I got covered. Right. So, anything else like you want to talk about? I mean, obviously you got all social medias and stuff. I'll put all that down below in the description.
Yeah, for sure, man. All I got to say is thanks for having me, and I just thanks for everybody that's helped me along the way, and everybody that's put good words in my ear, whether it be Matt or, you know, Panic or Woods or like the bands I super look up to. Oh, by the way, Matt Panic's band is the Electric Kool-Aid Trio. That's cool. The name of their band. But yeah, man, I just like whether it be you or Clint or any of those guys, like Jesse too. I've played with Jesse before, and gotta thank him and for kind of getting me out there too. I mean, anybody that's helped, that's the biggest thing. It's like, you know, I really never pictured doing any of this, and it's come so far in a little amount of time, and now we're like, oh, recording stuff, and it's like, I can't wait to get this out. So
yeah, man. Well, I'll be excited to hear it when it finally comes out. So you have to let me know.
Yeah, we'll do, man.
I'll get to listen to it. So anything else? We good?
Wow, yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
All right, dude. Thanks for being here. What a fun guy. Love sitting down talking with Vince. Good old Vinny. You guys want to check out any of Vinny's stuff, check it out down below. There's links down there to pretty much everything I've got for him. for Vinny and the Night Prowlers. There is going to be some new Vinny and the Night Prowlers music coming out. They're recording, and I actually got to hear some like rough copies of some of the stuff, like little bits of what they're doing, and holy cow, it sounds great. It sounds really good. Vince is he's got a style that's all his own. He likes what he likes and he plays what he plays, and that's one of the things I enjoy about him the most is he makes a choice and he sticks to his guns and he works hard, and you can see that people enjoy it, and you can see the growth that has been happening because he works hard. So hats off to you, Vinny. It's paying off, man. It's paying off in every aspect of your life, all this working hard that you're doing. So keep after it. And for those of you that know Vinny personally, you know that he's no stranger to having fun. So I'm sure he's going to have a lot of fun while he's doing all this. So super cool to see him out there playing shows. You know, I don't know if I would have imagined when we played Jam, you know, at a Jam, if he would, you know, where he would be, you know, 3 years from then. And here he is. He's just out there crushing it. So hats off to you, Vinny. Love it. If you guys are looking for any Audible Farm stuff, there's Audible Farm links down below. Vinny's links. The Audible Farm shop, the Patreon channel, the website. For the Patreon channel, it's $1 a month, $12 a year. You get all the video versions of the podcast. Check it out if it's something that interests you to watch the video versions. Otherwise, the audio versions will always be free no matter where you go. The website has links to all of the Audible Farm stuff, social media, the shop, all sorts of goodies. Or you can go directly to shop.audiblefarm.com or click on the link down below for the shop and find all sorts of Audible Farm goodies. I'm going to update the shop tonight with current quantities of what's available. I did recently sell out of another variety of a certain size of a shirt. So if you guys were still on the fence about maybe getting a shirt, I think you better hop on it, because I don't think I'm going to end up ordering any more of the one variety of a shirt that I made recently. So check it out, shop.audiblefarm.com. Otherwise, audiblefarm.com's got all the goodies. We are available on all social medias. If you're listening on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, share, tweet, poke, Instagram it. If you guys got any awesome Audible Farm merch, take a picture, send it to me. Let's share those around too. That'll be pretty fun to see who's wearing what or where the stickers are all at. It's so fun getting pictures of the stickers in different bathrooms and on people's different gear and things like that. So hats off to you guys for sticking the stickers everywhere. They are all over the place. I am going to be out of here for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Once again, thanks, Vinny, for swinging over and doing a podcast with me. It's one of my favorite people. All right, I'm out of here. Peace.